All right. Cool. Let's get started, guys. All of us are here. What? Yeah, everybody. Always in. Oh yeah, yeah. These are all the trims for sure. Like, no. So yeah, how's everybody doing? How's everybody's week going? Everybody having a good week, especially good week? Yeah. Is everybody having an especially bad week? Is everybody having an especially bad week? Anyone else that? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah? Tell us that.
I'm a congressional analyst, and they're marking out the replacement of Obamacare.
Oh man.
So
Nice.
that is actually not it. They issued that last year too. But they weren't. They ended up being Congress committee and House the day before, like 39 hours in a row yesterday. There's a team.
Something got approved this morning, like 4:30. I saw.
Yeah. So 2 committees started at 10:30 yesterday. One finished at 4:30 in the morning tonight. The other finished at 4 p.m. today after not going late at all. So everyone was like sitting there during yesterday close.
Yeah.
And,
All day too.
Yeah. So I did that.
Man, were you there all night?
I wasn't there all night. I like tapped in at like 7:30 and then was back at like this girl who was in one of the movies. Was like, oh, I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
So I picked up where she left off, but it's like a lot of items. Nothing got adopted because.
Hard.
Yeah, and
Who knew? It's so complex.
Never say parent getting done, so all they can do is like all these amendments and have to be rejected, so that's for X. Which is painful to watch.
Yikes. That is really okay. Well, we're not going to give anybody the opportunity to try and top that. I don't know that anybody could. So, how do people feel about homework? Good. You feel really good. All right, great. So Fernanda's going to come up here and walk us through the homework, the review. Overall, people feel good, sir. No, I just pushed that off. Yeah. So I'll try and do that every time, at least. Like, so we have class on Tuesday. I'll try and push the solution Wednesday night. Today, like, I'll try and push the solutions tomorrow, going forward. But yeah, I just pushed that earlier today. That's for you. That's so we can talk about it in class. That's it. And obviously, that's only whatever I put in there is only one way to solve that problem. Okay, so today's class is on objects. Objects is the last bit of JavaScript as a programming language that we're going to talk about before diving into actually starting to build stuff with JavaScript. This is sort of a rough guide for what today is going to be like. We're going to do a review, just like we've done so far. Then we're going to talk about objects for the majority of the class. And then we'll close out with an exercise. The exercise builds off of the one that you guys did for today, so from last time, and is also helping us build towards our lab, which you guys will see once you guys see it. Cool. Yeah, so overall, everyone felt pretty good about the homework assignment. Should we have a fist of 5? Oh, if you haven't done it, oh my gosh.
I just missed it. I thought it was like on screen and I missed that.
Oh man, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, since you didn't do it, you get to do it live for us all here. Yeah. For the first time. No, I'm just kidding. So, if we go into, so everyone should do a git pull upstream master if you haven't already. so that you have all of the latest working files. Cool. So has everybody done a Git pull up stream master? We're gonna go through this all together. Yep, we're all good. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Cool. So, who wants to describe briefly what we're doing in this first step? And while I'm waiting for someone to volunteer, I'll pick up my student worker. Go for it.
So you're declaring a function called createCheck.
Yep. Yeah, just want to get an overview.
And you're allowing suits and ranks for the arrays above, variables above that arrays to be passed in there. So suits and ranks, and then you're declaring another variable that allows it to be an array.
Yeah, perfect. Does somebody else want to volunteer to actually walk us through what some of that code looks like before I pick a student at random? Boom! I'll let you get settled. Sue's not here. All right, you're next. All right, yeah. Take a stab at writing this code for us.
So I forget it in a weird way, but
Well, if you did, we'll laugh at you.
so I create a function called createCheck,
Oh, so weird.
and then
That's
as a
not right.
parameter, I put suits and rings.
Perfect. Oh, weird. Yep.
So this is where I was a little unclear, but I put that in a little weird with functions, so I ended up putting my variables within the function. I basically just took the arrays, I copied the arrays down into the,
Oh, these ones down here?
yeah. I don't know if that's necessary. Yeah.
Sure. So one of the things that might be confusing, this is what we're doing. But our array here is called suits, and our array here is called the ranks. What we're doing here is taking those arrays up here and passing them into this function here. And then here we've named them the same thing, but these are separate. These are all almost like entirely different variables. These are the parameters for our function.
Okay.
But that's nice because then once we're inside here, they're called the same thing.
Right.
But they might as well be called.
Yeah, call them whatever you want.
Okay.
These need to be suits and ranks because we're passing in those arrays up there. We can call these beep and boop. Bill and Bob. Boo and Bob. Do you want to keep going?
Sure. So then I created a for loop.
Yeah. What's a for loop?
I'm really bad at the definitions.
Give us what you got. I'm sure it'll be great.
What is the for loop?
Well, yeah, what's a for loop? I've never heard of that before.
It's basically some sort of like mechanism that allows us to conduct some sort of like arithmetic or something over and over until we get a desired result.
Yeah. So we're going to loop for some condition being true. We're going to continue looping until that condition is no longer true. Loop is iterating code over and over and over again until our condition breaks. That was great. You are relieved. We'll pass the baton. So here we're going to build a for loop. That's where whoever is picked next. Oh, that's where Michael is picking up. So we have a for loop sign now. That's good. How do we build one?
So I created 2 for loops.
2 for loops. Woo!
I have no idea if I did this
A
correctly.
for loop party.
At least this part function for me.
Okay.
So I said for, and I call it variable x. So 4 parentheses variable x equals 0.
Small x equals 0. Perfect.
And I call x is smaller than I did ranks dot rank.
Interesting.
And I call in x plus plus. And I did the exact same for loop, but I called it for variable y.
Oh.
I did it for
Where did you do your second for loop?
right afterwards.
So that's 0 on line 29.
I did it on y, line 27 for sure.
Oh, you did it here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
The second one right afterwards.
So you got a for loop inside a for loop? Yep. That's what it sounds like.
And then I did it instead of, I did it for variable y, seed stop length instead.
There we go.
And then I actually, that I did a constant log of ranks. X and comma. And then parentheses, and then C, but in between I actually did one just above. So
Oh.
the expression.
That looks like it's the spaces on the other side.
And then outside of the function.
Right.
And,
Outside of the function. So down here.
and I created a variable called deck of cards equals create that.
Just like that?
Equals create that. Create that parentheses, nothing in it, and then I also log deck of cards.
Oh, interesting. So I think you have some things that are different about your approach. We have to pass in seats and ranks, which are array stuff on we have to, which are our things above. Also, all we're doing here is console logging. So we'll run it and we'll see how it works. But in the meantime, I'll save or remove the variable declaration. So cool. There we go. I can see that. Boom. Is this like what everybody did? Unlike what everybody did? How is yours different?
I created a variable called final deck. I created an empty array for final deck.
Okay.
Final deck, return final deck.
Oh, inside here?
Yeah.
That would
And then
work.
I had bars, set times equals the function.
That's very similar to what I did. So yeah, we're almost done. It sounds like you're just one step farther than what we've got, what we've gotten to here. So yeah, here we're printing out all of our deck of cards, but we want to actually save each of these individual cards into an array and return an array. So who's going to walk us through that? So.
I created an empty array.
Yep.
I call it
Total array like that.
And instead of console logging and activate, total array plus push.
Perfect. Something like that. Cool.
And then return.
Perfect. Yeah, there we go. Turn total array. Cool. And now we can do our variable assignment down here. So. There we go. Oh, because we have those commas. Cool. So is this what more or less like what everybody got? with obviously some variations. Maybe you had the suit and the rank in the other order. Maybe you looped through suits before you looped through ranks, something like that. But otherwise, this is by and large, but like what everybody got. Yeah.
Did you have to call in seats and rank?
Did we have to? So did we have to pass these in as parameters and then return a final array?
Yeah.
Without the only way of not doing that would be to create this array outside of our function, in which case we're dealing with side effects, which might, you can do it that way, it probably works. I would say I would recommend doing it like this, so it's all contained within your function. Especially when we get into programs where we're going to be using whatever it is, whatever our deck of cards is. Cool. So if we look over to the solution file real fast, this is what I got. This is what I did. It looks like almost exactly the same. I went through suits before I went through ranks. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as what we just did in class. So perfect. Great job, everybody. Okay. Does someone want to volunteer walking through high level what this next part is asking us to do? Yeah. What are we trying to accomplish here? Without talking about any code.
Want to put grab a random part from the array.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Now, does somebody want to volunteer to walk me through the code? Are you volunteering? Do you want to volunteer now?
Sure.
All right. Should we clap for people when they volunteer? Going forward. Okay.
So within this function, I create a function called
Okay, so how do I do that?
function
Perfect. Perfect. Or yeah, deck. I think we called our deck of cards. Yeah.
within the function I did RX.
Oh yeah. Let's call this. Cool. What's that doing?
Generating a random number. So the whole number is,
Exactly. So this is going to round it up to the nearest whole number. And then here we're generating a random number between 0 and 52. Cool.
this one, I did that cards and that's twice. But I don't want the same card to generate.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
So I did that card that's twice.
All right, deck.splice x.
So I'll have one card.
Nice.
Let's return. Before that, I did a set.
So wait,
It's the word set.
temp equals.
First. That's what I'm trying to say.
So we're gonna make that a var, and then we're gonna return temp. Great. So then down here, we're gonna do
What stuff?
dot. This is
There's
gonna
a few
round
things in
it.
this that I'm like, I don't know. what that is.
The math.floor is gonna round whatever number we get back here to the nearest whole number. So if we don't do that, what we'll get back is random number between 0 and 52, including decimal numbers. So 34.67219437, on and on. And there's no number, or there's no card at that index in the address.
Okay.
So we need to convert it to a whole number, which would be 34, or whatever the whole number that I
You also use first name in this case, or is that not one?
Parse int is good if we have a number stored in a string and we want to get it as a number.
What's the second parameter to this one?
Yeah, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it's just something I'm start. So I'll put 3 elements.
Slice is going to take our array, find the element using this as an index. So whatever item in the array is this index, and then start deleting. For however many elements we give it. And it's destructive or permanent. So this is going to affect the original array, right? Yeah.
What is that dot for called?
Math.floor.
No, like anything dot something. This isn't really this question.
We're going to talk about that today. So math is an object and floor is a method within that object.
Okay, and is there like a comprehensive list of?
Yeah, the Mozilla Developer Network has documentation, quote-unquote documentation on JavaScript language, which describes, in this case, math. You can look at the math object and it'll tell you what all the objects are. It'll tell you different, it'll give you like a little bit of documentation on each one, a description of what they do, some examples. It'll tell you when it was introduced, so you'll know if you're looking at one that is part of a newer spec versus part of an older spec. So, yeah. Great question. All right. So get random card, and then we need to pass in deck of cards. Let's do var by random card, and then we'll console.log. This, and then go up here, so we've got it all. By random card. Cool.
So in the function, you're taking the card off of that card off of the deck. And it disappears. And it will affect the deck.
So this will affect the final deck. Whatever card is randomly generated by the combination of these two lines, when we run this line, line 59, will be removed from the array.
But I see that's passed off. So
Yeah, it's a parameter, but variables are references to values. So when we pass in a variable or something as a parameter here, what we're getting is this reference, and then this references the original array, our deck of cards.
So if you run this function, that card will be missing from that.
Yep, it'll be deleted. Go and removed. Which you didn't have to do. I made a note here about that. Marvin's an overachiever. Not even. Okay, let's see. 9 of spades. And if we run this again, 8 of hearts. And if we run it again, 5 of spades. And if we run it 9 of hearts. Ace of spades. Literally, we can only get spades and hearts. What's going on? I don't actually know. Oh, there we go, diamonds. We're fine. Now we're only getting diamonds. Clubs, okay. We're good. Yeah, man. So let's see. Let's look at the solution that I threw together. So what I did was almost exactly the same as what Marvin just walked us through. I just didn't remove it from the array like he did twice. I have the exact same formula for getting a random index from the card. Rather than call it X, I call it random index. And then I'm just returning whatever deck you pass in, whatever card is at that index in that deck.
The reason I do trying to figure out how to do that because down at the bottom, I say you should do 7 cards.
Yeah,
And then keep it
the same cards. Yeah, that happened to me as I was building this out and testing it out, but I didn't want to worry about that. But it's great that you did. That's awesome. All right, so let's see. We've got what? 3 more? 4 more? What are we doing? We're doing all right. Okay. Matthew. Here? No, he's not here. I thought I saw him earlier. He didn't look like he was Maryam. I don't know. That's what I was hoping you could tell me. Okay, so we're going to write a function called deal hand. This function is going to take a number as its only parameter, And this number is going to represent the number of cards the deal hand should return. If no number is passed in, i.e. the number is null or 0, then we want to default to returning just one card. If we're returning one card, we want to return it as a string. If we're returning more than one card, we want to return those cards as an array. Pretty simple. Okay. So, okay, let's break it down. We're going to write a function called deal hand. Easy enough. Function deal hand. Done. This function takes a number, it's only a parameter. So I'm going to call this hand blank. How about that? Because this number represents how long or how big our hand is that we're dealing back. So I think that's a good variable. Cool. So I'm done with this first little stanza. Okay. So if no number is passed in, then this function should return one card. So what I'm going to do, we touched on this briefly when we talked about operators, I think when we talked initially about data types. What I'm going to do is call hand length, and I'm going to set it equal to hand length or 1. Yep. I can do this. So if hand length is no, i.e. when someone goes deal hand like this, what is this going to evaluate to? And do we think it will be truthy or falsy? Yeah, it'll be falsy. If one side of an OR statement is falsy, what is the overall evaluation of that OR statement? True. True. You're thinking of and. Yeah, you're thinking of and. So OR. So if this is null, then I'll get 1. And if it's not null, I'll get that number.
So in R, you can say hand length equals 1, and that's like null value is 1 passing.
So could I just do, rather than this, hand length equals 1?
Really?
Oh, right here. So you can set default parameters in ES6, the latest version of JavaScript. I'm actually not sure what the syntax is off the top of my head, but I think it's something like that. Sorry? Yeah, I think that will work. In ES5, that won't work. So right now, it doesn't matter because we're working in Node. Node is our JavaScript environment, and JavaScript is mostly compatible with ES6. When we get to browsers, if you're on Safari or Internet Explorer, then you're going to run into problems. So that's why we're doing it like this.
Do you use the OR operator in that case?
So yeah, if we were to do and, what we would get back, I think, fairly certain, is either true or false. Whatever that would evaluate to. Just like when we ran it with them. Yeah, no, so we can use greater than or equal to here. It's about what we would get back. This way, if hand length is null, we get 1 back. If we were to use hand length greater than 1, then we would get true or false back. Cool. So that takes care of this first sentence. If no number is passed in, the deal hand should return 1 card. Great. So now what I want to do is if we're only returning 1 card, i.e. if the value of hand length is equal to 1, then I want to return that card as a string. Otherwise, or else, maybe, I want to return an array. Is there some mechanism in JavaScript for doing that? Performing one action if something is true, or performing another if it's not true? There is? I don't think so, you guys. I think you're all mistaken. What is it? Well, I've never heard of that before in my life. Oh, it didn't work. There we go. Yeah, if else. So what's my if condition? Yeah, equals 1, right? Oh, do I have to do 3 equals? What? I don't want to type that much. Why do I have to do 3 equals? Yeah, to really make sure they're really equal. That's why. That's great. So 1 equal is assignment. If I did 1 equal sign here, hand length would be equal to 1 whether or not, like, whether I just work this one. It'd be a new assignment. And that would evaluate to true, so our if condition would run. 2 equals is a loose comparison, which here would probably be fine. But we're going to do 3 equals because that's a good habit.
Does that not make error if you're assigning a variable in the condition?
Nope. If that assignment works, it'll evaluate to true, and then you'll run your true condition. That might, I don't recommend doing that. That might lead to like some quirky behavior, but you can technically do it. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Oh man. So now how do we get a random card from our deck? Copy paste. Yeah, could we just call that function? I think I just commented the console log. I didn't even do that. No, I didn't. Yeah, so I'm going to call this getRandomCard. So let's see. Let's create a variable, card. Actually, I don't even think we need to do that. You know what? No, we don't. Okay. So I'm just going to return right here, getRandomCard, and I'm going to pass in my deck of cards. There we go. But if this is true, we're just going to return getRandomCard. And that's going to return 1 card. Now, hand length is not equal to 1, so if it's greater than 1, we're going to want to return an array of cards. So we have this method here for getting a random card. What we need to do is somehow leverage that method to then get an array of cards that we can return. Can anybody think of a good way to do that? Can anybody think of a good way? So, yeah. We have a way of returning a single card, right? Let's just get random card. This will return a single card as a string every time we call it. What we want, though, is an array of cards. An array of cards that is equal in length to whatever number was passed in here. Can anybody think of a good way of doing that? Here? Get random card or? What are some good mechanisms for performing the same action over and over for a certain number of times? Yeah, for loop. So we'll do for. What we're going to want to do is less than and length. I think we want to see less than. With our I equal to 1. Actually, this is. So what I'm going to do here is create an array up here. So call it var hand. There we go. And then while this expression is true, what I'm going to do is hand.push get random card and pass in my deck of cards. And then after all that, I'm going to return hand. All right. So now down here, I can do var hand of cards is equal to deal hand. And then console.log my hand of cards. How many cards will I get back? Yeah, I should get back 1. What about the second hand of cards? How many cards should I get back? Yeah. And actually, what we're going to do is about 1. And my second. Okay. So this length here is referring to the length of the string. But it worked, right? I got 10 cards the second time, and I got 1 card the first time. Is that kind of like what everybody had? All this? Maybe not quite so much spacing, but something kind of like this. Did anybody have anything different? Yeah.
I did a wow statement.
Okay.
And I made it at 2 different times instead of cards in the front, so we asked for 3 cards.
Mm.
Not saying the cards earlier in the message.
Wow, very clever.
Also, I had a question about the difference between using, like the array, like to add variables to push versus creating an array with for example, hand square bracket, I square bracket.
Yeah. So I recommend doing like this because then behind the scenes, JavaScript will figure out what the next index is and push it in for you. What you would want to be wary of if you're using I, so and brackets I, is that I is the next index in the array, and you have to like control that yourself. So if I create a new array and add an item at the 100th index, my array will be 100 indexes long, but the first 99 are empty. Yeah. So that is perfectly fine. You just have to be careful because it can lead to some weird behavior.
Yeah, a couple of times I got
Yeah. So if you're doing if statements inside your for loops, then you'll probably be, or you stand a very good chance of running into that. So, cool. So I think that's almost exactly like what I had here, what we did here. Yep. So I declared my variable first up here, which is fine. I did this for thing that I told you guys. And otherwise, it's all exactly the same. Rather than returning and inside of our if or else, I returned it down here at the bottom. But either is valid. This way, you're only returning once. Whatever. Cool. So let's see. Let's deal hand. Okay, 2 more. So here we're going to create var player 1 cards and var player 2 cards. And it's saying to initialize them as empty arrays. But can we just call our deal hand and get an array back? If I do that. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, because we're not, unless you're doing what Marvin did, where you're removing the card permanently from the array, there is that chance. But I mean, it's not small, right? Because there's only 52 cards. But I wouldn't worry about it. In the lab, you don't want to worry about it. But for now, don't worry. Okay, this is our last function. So we're going to create a function called showHand that takes a player's card as an array and prints out each card. Just prints it to the console using console log. Okay, so now I'm inside my function, and I've got my deck of cards. What I'm going to do is console.log. I could just pass hand in here, right, into my console log, and it would print it out as an array. Right? Would it? I don't know. I can just pass hand here, and it'll print it out. Sure. Hand is right here. So it's an array of cards. 7 cards. Generated here by the function that we just wrote. Yeah, that's great. So if we just print it out, it's just kind of ugly. It's going to print it out as an array, and then that's kind of it. So what if we did something like, yeah, that's an escape. Plus hand dot join. How do I want to do this? Space. I think that would be. Well, let's run it and find out. This. Yeah. Yep, it just means new line. So let's see, what am I on? So the important thing here is this join method. You don't have to worry about these escape new line characters. You can just pass it into console.log and it will be fine. It'll print it out. That would have been more than enough for this. You want to make it look a little nice, you can do join. You can do join and add it all into the same line. Comma separate. And that would also look great.
What is the join portion of it? Instead of showing it as an array of one line.
Yeah. So join is going to take every item in the array and concatenate them into a string. If we pass in a character here or a string here, it will use that as what it calls the separator. So you'll have one item from the array, the separator as a string, and then another item on until it gets to the end. I think this might work. Let's find out. Console. Yeah. Oh, that didn't work. Okay. When we get to the browser, there are a couple of other handy console methods that we can use. That will do, for instance, it'll take an object and print it out as a nicely formatted table. But we have to wait until we're in the browser for that. Do it again.
Oh, there's the, if you didn't have the dash in there, there's the long line, correct?
Yeah. This time. Yeah. Cool. And we're done. Congrats, you guys. Yeah. Go for it.
I didn't put parameters in my in all of my functions.
Okay.
And then I was wondering, when do you know to use parameters? Or when do you know? What's the way you think about it? Oh, it's using
So I would say that's a personal decision. There's no like right answer to that. If we think back to what we talked about with functional programming, then the answer is going to be something like, if we're using it in the function or if we're acting on it anywhere in the function, then we're going to want to pass it in as a parameter. And that's just going to keep our functions more pure. And like limit any side effects. I would recommend that as an approach. So if you're going to do something to that bit of data inside your function, pass it in as a parameter. It'll get a little tedious, but it will help avoid any bugs. Yeah, but that's a great question. Okay, any questions on this before we continue? Speak now for the piece. Okay, let's break for 10 minutes, and then we're going to talk about objects.
Can you scroll up to get random card?
The solution file, if you do a git pull upstream master, you should get the solution file.
Oh, it's even
Like, there are other people I know.
Is there another website?
Is there another way in my budget or card that say that value is 10, so I have something to return? That makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine. You can also just return it.
Even after I'm on the right.
Yeah, let me pull it back up. So here's what you had. So, yeah. So if you return it, then you'd be done. You wouldn't be able to run this. I think Slice will return the item that's deleted. So what you could have done is return, yeah, like that, and that would have been it. But I'd have to check if that's actually the case. I think it does. So this would have returned whatever random part was at. Yeah. So that's nice because then it's nice and clean. But yeah, temp is fine. Temp is totally fine. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Probably like
Yeah. But it's better environment. Have a good one. Yeah, I think by my count, y'all have another 5 minutes. You guys are done breaking. You guys are over breaking. Got your PB a day. They haven't filled this. They haven't filled the thing in a while. What's that?
Can we stick it here?
Yeah. No, absolutely not. No slacking. All right. Break's over. Back to work. Quit slacking. Okay. So today we're talking about objects. As I said before, objects are the last language feature of JavaScript that we'll talk about. In isolation, we'll talk obviously about language features that are specific to the browser when we get into that, the class after our lab, and so on. But as far as like basics of JavaScript as a programming language, here we are in the last lesson before the lab. Cool. So let's actually. So what are, well, thinking back, we've covered sort of the basics of data, right? Like we've got numbers, we've got strings, we've got booleans, and then those are our basic primitive data types. And then we've got more complex data types, which is the array. What's an array? Yeah, it's a collection of things. Collection is a great word. What do you call arrays in Python? Yeah, list. Why do you call them lists? Yeah, because they're lists of things, but they're ordered, right? That's the key thing. They're a list of individual items. If we want to retrieve an item from the list, how do we do it? Yeah, by its index or by its position in the list, etc. So arrays are very powerful, but they're somewhat limited. In PHP, you have but an array where you can retrieve an item by a key. That's what objects are. Whoops, missed part, but we'll just give it a time. So objects are our second complex data type after arrays. And what's cool about objects is they exist, or they have key value pairs. So unlike arrays where we store items based on their position in the list, we'll store items based on a key. That key is how we will both add items to an object and how we will get them back. So what do objects look like? There are three parts to an object. We open or create a new object with curly braces. So, if we compare that to arrays, we create a new array with square brackets, right? It's the same thing, but we're going to use curly braces here. And then within an object, we have a key, and then a colon, and then the value that we want to assign to that key. Values can be anything. They can be an array, they can be a number, or a string, or a boolean. And they can also be functions. If we're adding a function to an object, then we call it a method. So I'm here in objects.js, the file that we'll be working through for this class as we walk through objects. If I scroll down a little bit to this first part, I have my first object. So just like I said a minute ago, we're going to open up a new object with curly braces instead of square brackets. And then within that, we're going to create a key, which is a string, but it can also be what's called a symbol, which is one letter, no spaces, word. It's important that it can't have spaces. And a way that we make these readable is by camel casing them, as I've done here with last name. So these on the left of our colons, these are our keys. On the right, we have our values. And as you can see, we can put anything in our value. It can be a string, it can be an array, it can even be another object, it can be a number, it can be a function.
Why do you have your first name as a string? I mean, not the value of the first name.
Yeah, the key. Yeah, so this is the key, this is the value. The key is a string because I have a space here. So there's two ways I can set a key. The first is as a string. Like I'm going to be a single quoted or a double quoted string. Or as a symbol, which is what I have down here. So say hello, height, favorite numbers, favorite colors, last name. It's like a string. We can only really use it when we're creating a key in an object. And it can't have any spaces. Otherwise we'll get a syntax error. Yeah, you'll want to define it as a string. When we get into working with objects, we'll see why these symbols are really powerful.
If the key is a string, then you can't use like the dot notation.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So we're going to talk about dot notation or getting things in and out of objects in a minute. But, okay. So this is how we create objects. Why don't you guys go ahead and create your own in this first exercise. You're going to be creating an object representing a car. that event is open. There's nothing.
Yeah, but it doesn't just like.
Yeah,
I
so like
swear,
amplifies it.
it's right over.
It's awesome.
If it were just like an open wall, it wouldn't be as like direct.
Right. How are we doing on defining our objects? I should have the example up for you guys. Has everybody finished defining their car? Raise your hand if you have finished. Yeah, absolutely. That would look a little ugly and would be a little hard to maintain, but yeah, you could absolutely do that.
So what's going on?
Like where I'm assigning an object to my key, or my key.
Sure. Like you're breaking it up into.
Yeah, sub-objects. So, okay. I want to pause for a minute and go back. I skipped over something in my notes that I meant to talk about to like start all this off. And I want to go back and like talk about it and then make sure that we're all clear. Is that all right? It's like Adele. She's like, no, I gotta start the song over. Okay? Okay. So sorry guys, I gotta start the song over. Objects are too important. That's not the point of that comparison. That was not the point of that comparison. If you want, I could sing the lesson.
Yes.
Objects. Are you making that noise or am I? Oh, never mind. Okay. I think we were getting some feedback or something. Okay. So I'm not Adele, and we're starting over again with objects. Okay. Okay. So thinking back over the last couple of lessons, over what we've learned, we started with basic data types, right? Booleans, strings, numbers, etc. And we added a complex data type, which was the array. And then last class, we learned about control flow. What's control flow? What's that?
Control flow, how you incorporate functions and how you control how to further exert functions.
Yeah, absolutely. So control flow lets us write programs that respond to our data and perform actions based on what our data is. So that was last 2 classes ago. Then last class we talked about functions. Functions let us act on it, right? So the 3 of these kind of create like a circle, if you will. Top, we're creating some data, we're defining our data for our program. And then our program is going to respond to it. That's the next part of the circle. And then the final part, or completes the circle, is then we're going to call a function. And that function is going to affect our data, thus starting the whole thing over. We have new data now, so now we're going to respond to it in some way, set up another action. That action is going to affect some data. So where are objects today? So if we've got a complete circle here. Well, it's kind of a tricky question. But the answer really is that objects are like the whole circle. Because numbers are objects. And functions are objects. Yeah?
Is there any type of data type of
Well, yeah. So that's the point I'm about to make. Objects are both containers for our data, much like arrays, but they're also bits of functionality, or what we'll later learn are called classes. So when we're talking about numbers as an object, that's what we mean. Number is a class. It's a way for us to group data by modeling off of our understanding of the real world. So we can create an object that represents a table, or a student, a person, and then another object that represents a student, or a car. So we've already talked about the anatomy of an object. And this is really powerful. We can put anything in an object, any kind of data, or any kind of functionality. What makes this useful is not necessarily in its convenience, but what we can use it for. And that's modeling real-world things in our programs. So we can create programs that have some idea of what a person is and all of the attributes and functionality that people have, from walking to talking to punching people in the face when they're talking too loud at the snack area. So they're a way for us to group functionality together. This is really powerful. It's one of the biggest paradigms in computer science or in application development. And it's called object-oriented programming. Building applications that model real-world objects and how they relate to each other. If you think of any application, a user is probably an object. That user probably interacts with whatever core business feature of that application is. If it's Slack, then messages are probably an object. So each user has some functionality around sending messages, etc. And all that gets stored in an object. So this is an object, both an example of an object, but what else am I doing here? I'm opening up some curly braces and I'm adding some keys and properties, some different examples of what you can use in your key value pairs, from properties to methods. But I've also built an object that models a person, and I can use this throughout my program. If the application we're building right now relies on user profiles, then we can have functions that let me say hello to other users.
Say hello to an object.
In the sense that a function is an object. But what we call this is a method. So what we're seeing here, oops, excuse me. What we're seeing here, one second. What we're seeing here is a collection of data and functionality, right? Syntactically, that's what's powerful about objects. But that's not really it. What makes that powerful is how we can use it. This data could be anything, both in the sense that we can put anything in here, and that if we're not careful, we can have anything in here, right? Or if we're careful and we're organized about it, we can build an object that represents something that we're trying to work with, or something that we're trying to reason about. Maybe like a deck of cards or an individual card. Does that kind of answer your question? Sure. Okay. All right. What was your question?
My question is, if this was math method, like when you talk about the low code function, would the math portion be the key or the math portion be about?
Oh, yeah. So referring back to the question that I think it was your question, right, about math.floor. Oh, it says, yeah. In that case, math would be the name of our overall object. And floor would be a method in that object. So behind the scenes, JavaScript is doing something kind of like this. Some code in here. Like that. That's a really good question. What we're going to see going forward is a lot of examples of what's probably just like this under the hood. When we get to building servers, we're going to use a library called Express, and we're going to do something like var app equals express, and then app.use. Where use is obviously just this express is just returning a function, calling a function, is returning an object. That object has a bunch of properties and methods on it that we're going to use. And we're going to use those to build our server or our API. So before we get ahead of ourselves, let's build a car. What we're doing here is modeling our understanding of a car in code. So there's two parts of that, right? The first is the syntax, probably var car or something like that is equal to open curly braces. And then what's some functionality that cars have? Or what are some properties that cars have? Yeah, make, model, those are great. What's a make and model in reference to a car? What do those refer to? Or what is our understanding of those? Yeah. Yeah. Toyota Prius. A Toyota Corolla. Does anybody have a cooler car than Toyota Corolla?
No, I actually wrote Toyota Corolla.
Oh, perfect. Okay. That's what my fiance right now. Cool. So has everybody built their car? Coming back to this? Do you guys want a couple more minutes to finish your cars? Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, what's the method? What things do cars do? Yeah, they drive forward, they turn left, they turn right, you gotta open and close the doors, you gotta turn the windshield wipers on, the lights on. And honestly, shift gears.
Nice. I mean, all of us have to shift gears. I just have to do it more often.
No, man. I'm in saving. Okay. Does that answer your question, Michael? I'll give you guys a couple more minutes to finish building out your car. Then we'll talk about it. You finished your car, look up at me so I know. Cool. Okay, so who wants to walk me through building their car, or the car that they built? Not you, I only try to stick. Did anybody build a really, really cool car? Did anybody build themselves like a Lamborghini or a Maserati? Tesla? Yeah. Did you build a Tesla? Oh, sorry. No, you could have. It could have been any car in the world. Could have been any car in the world. Right. Somebody, who did a Volkswagen? Did anybody build out a Volkswagen? Anyways, everybody's driving Corollas. That's what it is.
Build a hearse.
A hearse. There you go. What did you? All right. How do we build us a hearse, Chris? Bar hearse like that. Is that how you spell it?
I think it's
Hearse. Should we look it up? Should we take time to actually look it up? Okay. All right. Hearse. Oh, hearse for sale. Okay, there we go. All right. There's a name there. We're not going to look at buying hearses. Okay, so a hearse is equal to. What color is your hearse? What? That's so boring. Who wants to ride around in a black hearse? Yeah, there we go. Cool.
Alright, wood grain.
It's okay. So color, wood grain. What makes and models of hearses are there? Yeah, how many coffins? How many coffins is your hearse hold?
3. It's a triple deck.
Where are you going?
Is that how you spell coffin? C-O-F-F-I? Yeah, that's fine. So 3. How many miles per hour does your hearse go?
I don't work that.
Oh, okay, even better. How many horsepower? Yeah, man. This thing have like 2 turbo boosters, like Fast and the Furious. Fast and the Fury hearse. Okay, and what's the one thing that your hearse can do?
I said it gives off like a GPS.
Okay, so we'll do GPS or transmit location, right? That's a function. Cool. Great. So here's our hearse. So this is great because, as I've said, we can put any values in there, right? Our key has to be a symbol or a string, but we've got strings, we've got numbers, we've got a function. We can have an array. Maybe that's the actual coffins themselves.
So how would that be like one?
Yeah. So we'll call it cargo, not to be insensitive or anything. And then in here we'd have maybe an object that represents, an individual coffin. This is pretty dark.
We could do like seats, like how many people in seats?
Yeah, let's see that. That's much better. So seats, and then, an item for each seat.
Can you write out the alphabet specifically?
Sorry?
Can you write out the alphabet specifically?
Yeah. So here we have to comma separate everything. That's something that and then we can put anything in here. We can put numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or we can put in other objects. So this would be, let's say, seat is driver seat, and then passenger, or a good word for like the person sitting in that seat. Seaty. Yeah. So yeah, shotgun. Let's call that one true. And then let's go with passenger. It's CHRS. Okay, so Chris is riding shotgun and driving our hearse. This is what that's. So this is powerful because we can put anything in here. But what's powerful about that is that we can model real-world things. So Chris here is building an application that lets you buy and sell used, souped-up hearses. So in his application, he's going to need some way of representing each hearse. All the data, the seller, the price, all the added features, some way of representing his hearse as he needs to within his application. That's what an object is great for. So we'll come back to talking about people. Until we go back to it. But so this is great. We've got our data in there, in our object. It represents our understanding of a person. But now what? I've got all this data stored somewhere. Can I use it? Can I get it back? Can I change it? Yeah, of course we can. So there are two ways of working with objects, or getting and retrieving, getting and setting, excuse me, items in an object after it's been created. The first is what we call bracket notation, and the second is called dot notation. So here on line 48, I have an example of what bracket notation looks like. Oh, it's kind of familiar, doesn't it? No, we've never seen this before. What are you talking about? No, of course we have. It's just like an array. It's just like an array. It's just like an array. I was being facetious. Yeah. It's just like an array. Well, yeah, it's got quotes in it. What do we think this refers to? The key or the value? Who says key? Raise them high so that I can actually see. Perfect. Who says value? Yeah, that refers to the key. We're going to pass the key into our brackets, and we'll get back. What do you guys think we'll get back? The value. Yeah, in this case, we'll get the string Zach back. So this is kind of cool. This is cool, but it's kind of verbose. By which I mean we have to type it. What's much nicer is being able to use dot notation. This is why symbols can't have strings in them, or can't have spaces in them, excuse me. And so we use camel case. But I can take my object, put a period here, and then call the key for an object property and get it back. We've never seen this before, though. Yeah, that's absolutely right. We have seen this before.
Can you go more into what key is?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the left side of the colon, we have the key. And on the right side, we have the value. This is called a key-value pair. And it's a way for us to organize our data. If you think of a table, like a spreadsheet, it's like two columns in your table. So here we have the left column and the right column. The left column, our key, is how we're going to access the right column, our value. In this case, the left side of the column, the key, is how we're going to access our actual value that we're saving. These almost act like variables. The key. The key kind of acts like variables.
But only within.
Yeah, only within an object. And it's only insofar as you think of like this value is being stored here. So this is how we're going to reference that.
Really, it's like a variable last name equals first name.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to type. So it's sort of similar to var last name equals placement. But this is loose. We learned about scope last time. This is just floating around in global scope. If we got a bunch of variables representing our person, so var first name equals Zach, like that. Var height is equal to, we'll do 4, like that.
But you put it all in the object, so you can call it.
Yeah, so if I do this, I can only get each property or each item individually by its variable. This way, they're all stored in one value in reference to one variable, and so I can get them all at once. And then pull out the ones that I actually need. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Does that make that a little more clear?
Is a more, so,
Go for it.
well, I don't want to know what this one is. But like, if you're doing something with this data, and like that's a person, would you call that like Zach placement, or would you call that like, people as your variable, and then you can throw in other values into those keys? For an object?
When we talk about object-oriented programming, I think this is what you're talking about will become more clear. Because right now we have one object named person. And if I want multiple people, how do I do that? I have to build a whole other object. When we do object-oriented programming, we have a way of building one object that is a prototype for all future instances of that object. So we can build a prototype for a person where the name, first name, the last name, the colors, all this stuff is not set or is set to some default. And then we can create a new instance of that and set all those values. But we're not there yet. In like 30, 40 minutes. Okay.
Is it also used in like nesting?
Yeah, you can do what's called inheritance. So we have a person object, we have a teacher object, the teacher object inherits from the person object. So Lamborghini. The hearse is a type of car, the car object. The hearse. Lamborghini hearse. And somewhere in Italy, I guarantee it.
Suicide
I am going to take you out of my random student picker. I don't want your okay. So this is how we get items from an object. Is with bracket. Oh, sorry, question. Sorry?
I was just wondering if you person.
Our computers would explode. It wouldn't. You're getting a weird thing? Okay. Let me come up here and console.log person load Oh, we're getting all this. Oh, because I've got a bunch of stuff at the bottom of the file that's not commented out that's supposed to be. I did that again. Unbelievable. Oh. No peeking, no peeking. We haven't gotten to this part yet. This? Say hello.
I assume that they just say hello should be just like console.log.
Yep.
But when I console.log person, why does he say hello as
a function? That's just like a thing that Node is doing. It's not, what's in your function is protected, so it can't necessarily see it until that function gets called and it's executing it. So it's just recognizing that that's a function. But yeah, okay. Yep.
So wait, sorry, one more thing. Wait.
Oh yeah.
So in this case of name,
Person?
in the bottom, say hello function name, passing the name. What is it?
So in this case, name is going to be whatever we pass in. So we just have to find that. Yeah. So what we, in order to use this, we have to do
Oh, so it's
person dot say hello, and we built it so that we can leave it empty, and we'll get you, say you, or something like that. Hello you. Or we can do that.
Okay, so it's the like.
Yep. Yeah, we could do. Whoops. So object conception, person, last name, something like that, or first name. We do that. We'll see a better way of handling this when we talk about object-oriented programming. Okay. So this is how we get values out of an object once it's been set. But what if we build our object and then we realize we forgot to add something, or we want to change something? Well, unfortunately, in JavaScript, you host. There's nothing you can do. I'm a liar. That's absolutely right. There are so many things we can do. We can use dot notation or we can use bracket notation. And just do assignment, just like we do with the variable. And then we'll get this back. So here I'm changing my favorite color to just green, a string. I'm making myself 10 feet tall. Well, 10'6". we can, if something is deeply nested, so within an object, we can chain our dot notation or chain our bracket. Chain meaning adding one afterwards. So here, person is the person object that I have below. Person.height gets me the height object from my person object. And then .feet gets me feet from my height object inside my person object. Doing that up here. So person, level 1, person, height is sub-object, person.height. Person.height.feet is this feet right here. Feet isn't tall. Do y'all believe me? Will that work?
Why do they both organizational dot as well as the
Why do we have both? It is, and that's by far and away the most common one that you'll see. Dot notation was added in version 3 of the language, and I don't know anything more of the history other than that. Dot notation is pretty common in many languages. Do you use dot notation in Python? Yeah. You use it in Ruby too. I'm not, I think we use it, yeah, maybe not. But yeah, I can't answer that question. I almost exclusively use dot notation. I can't think of an instance for bracket notation. What was it?
I had my question was like, thought about it. How would you say hello?
Oh yeah, with assignment, just simple assignment. So if you guys remember, say hello is our function up here, right? We can edit it. We can write a new function and pass it in, and assign it to say hello. We can change it entirely so that say hello is no longer a function, but the string hello.
Let's do the type.say hello.
Yep. So person.say hello equals that would work. Okay. So now, oh yeah, that's a great question. So here we're only editing existing values. How do we add a new one? Actually, I think I have that down here. So here I'm adding a method called grow, which is going to make someone taller by some number of inches. And I do that with either dot notation or bracket notation, as if the object or the key were already there. I'm going to add the key, so in this case, person.grow or person bracket grow. And then I'm going to assign it through simple assignment, whatever value I want to store. In this case, I'm storing a function, but it could be an array, it could be a Boolean, it could be a string, it could be anything. And then if I have a function, I call it just like this. So person, the reference for that function, and then parentheses.
Instead of roles so that the value has to be with the same data type, so let's say hello, you need that object to function. You don't want something to actually look like
Yeah.
something.
You can, once we've talked about object-oriented programming. So natively in JavaScript, no. Because JavaScript is not a typed language, which means when we declare a variable, we don't have to define what type of variable it is, then not really. There are ways of using object-oriented programming so that we can kind of enforce that. So we would declare an object, and then we would declare methods on that object that update those values, and then we kind of hide those values so that we can't update them directly. So if we have a car, the car is red, rather than saying car.color equals blue, we would have to call car.paint and then pass in a color. And then that function would be in charge of checking that that value is actually a color or something like that.
So the post is like, instead of saying row at some point, have an essay and they'll just keep adding.
Oh.
Like that key instead of.
Yeah.
making there, so like, oh, this would be this, and-
Yeah, so if we did something like person.grows here and we meant grow, then we would have that function called grows. If we were down here and we went person.grows, this would throw an error. Because there's no key in our object called grows. So it would throw an undefined error.
But they said they'll be adding that key to the
When we do assignment, yes.
So only.
So here what we're doing is not assignment, but retrieval. We're getting something. Just like we are here, and just like we are here. Those are great questions. Okay. We are going to jump to exercise 2, where we have to unfortunately return to our hearse, our super hearse. No, you can use your hearse. This is the only one that's using hearse. We're going to go through these and we're going to add some properties. We're going to get some of those properties, console log them, etc. So I'll give everybody. What's up?
Oh, you can scroll down.
Yeah. I wanted to check to see how long it was. All of the attributes are properties. So key value pairs are properties, and the ones that contain a function are methods. That's a good question.
So we're all in that also.
Yes. For is a method of math.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, this thing I typed that.
So the undefined
I actually.
It's also. All right, guys. Raise your hand if you're finished. Raise your hand if you made the fastest car. No, you hurt? You hurt?
I actually loaded the horsepower.
Oh man, why?
Figure with 3 bodies.
Yeah, you gotta take it easy. Triple decker. This is not what I want. Okay. Okay. So does somebody want to volunteer to tell me about their car, the car that they built? Maybe how about Jolene? You want to tell us about your car? All right.
So, my car.
Like that? Did I spell your name right? Great. Well, Jolene's car.
Okay, so I have a model.
Okay, model. An A8. I've never heard of this car. Oh, okay. Yeah, man. Move it up. Oh, wow. Mileage like that? So, wait, back up. I missed something. What was it?
My miles, so my function is dying. It's in miles.
Oh, okay. Here. So as a parameter. There we go. So miles. So,
It is not stated 50. Okay, well, you got a lot.
I hope you don't mind. I ripped a little. Okay. Great. That's perfect. This is a great car. Much better than ours. Okay. We've already got that. Okay. So we're going to want to get one property from our car, our Audi, using dot notation. How do we do that, Vanessa? Yeah. What were? Let's do model. How about that? Let's do this thing. There we go. So that just puts it here. That way we can refer back to it. You wanted to see the model?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. We can only start out model. What will that give us back? Yep. Okay. Well, we want to log it if we want to see it actually work. This way we'll get it, but then we won't actually do anything. We're not going to assign it to a variable or a console log. But yeah, that will get the property. Okay, Mary, how do I get another property using bracket notation? Yeah, just to make. Yep, that's perfect. Pretty simple. Okay, so now either using dot or bracket notation. So let's change the color of our car. Sorry, Jillian. Yeah. Red cars are naturally faster. Right, car guy?
Yeah, it's due to the wavelength energy of.
Okay, all right, that's too much. Too far. Too far. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so, moving on. Call our cars method. Yep, that'll do it. 55 maybe. That'll work. This. Will also work. It's kind of ugly. Takes so much more typing. It's like, man, at this point, we need to have like 6 semicolons to the end or something. I don't know. I've already wasted most of my day. No. That would also work. Perfect. Okay. So we are not going to do that. Sorry. Bring with objects. Let's see. We already talked about all this. Okay. So we're going to sidebar for a moment and talk about something called JSON. Who's heard of JSON? Yeah. Somebody want to explain to me what JSON is?
I make bot, like web scrapers, and I hear this phrase JSON to Lua, that people who are really good at me talking about it all the time, but never ask.
All right. JSON to what?
Lua.
Lua?
Lua. It's another language.
Oh.
Turn JSON into Lua. Get it to format it.
Oh, cool. All right. So what's JSON? JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's that object that we just built, that notation of how we did it, as a data format that we can store in a database. In the 1990s, maybe 1995 or 6, no, it would have been early 2000s, excuse me. Someone by the name of Douglas Crawford, who wrote a book called JavaScript: The Good Parts, proposed that JavaScript's object notation be institutionalized as a data format. And he did that because, one, it's really, really lightweight, and two, it's really, really flexible. We can put anything in there. So it's often contrasted to SQL. Does anybody know what SQL is? Or has heard of SQL? Yeah, what's SQL?
I always used to put that in the database.
Yeah. Sorry?
That's SQL query.
Yeah, SQL queries, yeah. So SQL, what does SQL stand for, Maryam?
Structure.
Yeah, structured query language, yeah. It's also a database format, right? It's one that you're probably more familiar with. If you think of a big Excel spreadsheet, that's just like SQL. Rows and columns and tables. JSON doesn't have any of that. It just has objects and then keys and properties. And those keys and properties can be anything, including other objects. Anything but functions, I should say. We're using JSON as a data type. This is commonly referred to as NoSQL, and we'll learn about it in our, in our lesson on databases. So, this, back here. So we're going to learn how to work with JSON. I actually have a JSON file here. It looks like this. We're going to open up with either brackets, or we can do arrays. But we don't need to worry about that too much. We're going to open up an object, and then we're going to define our keys and our values. When we're writing JSON, there's three things to know, maybe 4 things. The first is that we have to use double quotes. We can't use single quotes. The second is that we can't use symbols. So here I've got foods, that's only one letter, or one word, excuse me. But I can't use a symbol when I'm working with JSON. I have to use strings as my key. The third is that I can't have what's called a trailing comma. So here I have an array of objects. Each object is comma separated, but the last one doesn't have a comma after it. If it did, it would throw an error. And then the last one is I can't put functions in here. The only data types I can put in here are strings, numbers, booleans, and arrays. Cool. Yeah, right here on.
Second rule.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not comment out things in this format here,
And what?
in JSON.
In
Because
JSON.
you don't like, I don't know, I'm trying to comment something out right now.
Oh, yeah, no, you can't do that in JSON. This is a database file. We could use this as a database. And actually, I think our exercise has this too. It does. So we can't put any comments in here, was Sarah's point.
So is this how like search is happening on websites? Put all this stuff in this.
Could be. It could be. Most APIs send JSON back and forth, right? So if you've got your search functionality and it's interacting with an API, it's likely that when you type the H key, that you get an AJAX with a request to an API for everything that starts with an H, and then you hit E, and you get everything back as JSON that starts with HE, and then HEA, and you get everything back with HEA back, and then it starts to figure out that you're looking for hearses. And that's because JSON is very, very flexible and very, very lightweight. Yes. So, number one, let's see if I can do it in the right order. So number one, we can't use symbols. Our keys have to be strings. Number two is we can't use single quotes, only double quotes. I'll wait for you guys to write that down before. Okay, number three is we can't have trailing commas. So the trailing comma is here. I have an array of objects. Each object is comma separated. I can't have a comma after the last one. Was we can't use symbols. We can only use strings. As I said, call after the last item. After the last, yeah, item there. So yeah, after that last item. Last item on the list.
You can't use it anywhere. You can't use it inside
Yeah.
either.
So I couldn't use a trailing comma here after the array because there's no property after the student's property. And then within each of these individual objects, I couldn't have one after my price.
Is store number, store name, sorry, isn't that, a thing you can't do when it comes to second?
So this is a key, but it's a string in double quotes, which is fine in JSON.
So what's the difference between a string key versus a symbol key? I thought you had to use quotes either way.
No, so for the symbol, we don't have to use quotes, but we can put spaces in there if we're creating a symbol.
Okay, so, okay.
Okay, and so that's the four. Did everybody get them? Everybody wrote them down?
No function.
Yeah, no functions. That was the one. I didn't actually say it. Okay. So this first property is a string. The key is a string. This second property, this key is a symbol. There's no quotes left. Cool.
talking about the first one again, actually, if you scroll, where it had the string, the first one, if you were to call that later in dot notation.
You can't. Nope. You can't. If you're using strings as your key, you can't call it with dot notation. You can only use brackets.
So you can't copy this from file. Oh, you can't always copy this from file.
Yeah, so we have to, there are ways to do it in JavaScript because JSON is such a common data format. And when we talk about APIs, we'll talk about those. Because when we're like sending JSON back and forth from an API, like in a request, we're going to send it as a string. So we're going to parse that JSON from JSON into a JavaScript object. And then we can use that. Yeah. So once I have my JSON data in my JavaScript, I can use it just like an object. It's limited, right? For now, we can't use dot notation. Oh yeah, no, we can't. We can't use dot notation, except if this has a spacing. So in my other example, which is store, go ahead and add this. Here we're calling JSON data.foods1. We're going to get the first item in our foods array back. As we saw before, JSON is smart enough, or JavaScript is smart enough to convert this from a string to a symbol when we use dot notation. We saw that with our cars.
So we pull the full first thing from each of the subsets.
Yep. It'll pull this first object from my array. Yeah, the whole object. That's a good question. But I can't use dot notation with store name because it has a space in it. Okay, so let's see. We should have taken a break before I started all this. We've been going for like maybe an hour and a half or so at this point. Do you guys want to take a break and then do the exercise, or do the exercise and then take a break? Who votes option 1, which is take a break and then do the exercise? Who votes option 2? Let's do option 3, which is the next 20 minutes, you can do 10 minutes of break and or 10 minutes of this. But in 20 minutes, this has to be
Exercise 3.
Yes, exercise 3.
Is your files considered available?
No.
You can just use like password or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, you can just require something, and then it's like its scope basically gets merged into wherever you've required it into.
Are we trying to use a relative path or a this path?
That is a really good question.
What's the figure out what the relative path is?
So I think you have to use an absolute path.
How do I find that again?
You make it up. Oh wait,
We actually have a file called data.dot.
yes, that's the one you're supposed to be importing. You are supposed to be using a relative path or an absolute path from your current location. Whoa! No. So it's an absolute path. You're just going to start with the dot, which is referencing your current location.
Then we use it as
You could use an absolute path. That would be fine. Yeah, dot slash. Oh, right.
Is it actually going to say because of that?
Does it actually go? Yes.
So the path is you put a period before and put a copy paste path.
Yep. So well, you're gonna build this path based on where you are and where the file. This dot stands for the current directory, dot slash, and then wherever the data file is that we're trying to, which is data.json.
So doing print work in the directory and copying that is not.
Oh, that might work. Oh, okay. Yep, that's it. Good job. Y'all can mix up your use, like 5-minute break, 5-minute work, 5-minute break, 5-minute work.
So if we console log my JSON here, is this supposed to pull up the?
Yep, you should get everything in your JSON file spitting out. Okay. Yep.
Oh yeah, there it is.
It was just. I think so. There's like. Okay, so now
Use excluded brackets and everything? Oh, that's good.
Oh, it's pretty close.
1 minute left.
Yes!
Oh, nice job.
So it's
All right, everybody. Did not take a break. So sad for you. Too sad. So sad. Too bad. Too bad. So sad. That's what it is. It's been a while since I was teased anybody. Okay. Oops. Okay. Cool. So, what did you guys think of this exercise with JSON? What do you guys think of JSON so far? So, yeah, it's interesting, right? Takes maybe a little bit of like getting used to, but all right, let's do it together. And then we'll talk about object-oriented programming. We'll do our exit tickets, and then we'll peace out. Oh, great. What I have to say. So, Phil is back. Does everybody remember Phil? Hi, Phil. Everybody say hi to Phil and wave to Phil. I hope it's working. So, sadly, last time Phil was with us, he was not awake. So, the camera was not actually turned off. So, now we're recording some of us. Yeah, he's also in our Slack group, as some of you found out. Cool. Okay, so we're going to pull in this JSON data from this JSON file. And then we're going to print it out in this nice, pretty format. Sorry? Okay. So I'm going to change my data, or my JSON to data, because I like that variable name a little bit. All right, this is how, as we discussed earlier, I pull in that JSON data into this file. It's using require. What do I have to do next? That? that. Yeah, we can do this. We're gonna make it quick marks. That's all. So just add it to single quote then. I have double quotes on the outside, so I can use a single quote on the inside. Yeah, let's see if that works. Oh, and it does. Good job. Okay, and now I'm going to console.log item, color, price, right? But I get through the first 2 lines in my nicely formatted table. I thought we were supposed to pull that. Yeah, you can do that too. Yeah, it has a different name, doesn't it? What did we call it? We called it name. Yeah, name.
Yeah.
Did you guys? Can we? So some of you guys did, right? How did you do it? Those of you who did. You did this? Yeah. You have a question?
Yeah, so I was trying to do that and I was using the object keys,
Yeah.
but I could only get it to print out the entire thing. So it's like playing.
So let's see. Oh. So this is an important point. I think I understand. So what you did was, or yeah, let's find out. What did you type here?
Well, I created another way called store size and then object keys.
Or what do you call it?
Store size.
Size.
Object keys has the.
Is that? Is that?
How big is this object?
Let's do this. Console.log. It's been a while since I've used objects like .keys like this, so we're doing some live coding. But okay, what we really want is data.foods. Oh, right, because it's capital F. Sorry. Good.
So I guess I don't know how to do it without
Yeah.
like a key.
Yeah, I see where you were going. So data.foods is the first object in my foods array, right? By passing that into my object.keys method, object, this is the native JavaScript object, which I'm sure is super clear.
Documentation.
Once it's in JavaScript, it's just an object. Yeah, it's just an object. So we can't for store, whatever, store name, right, because it has a space. But we can do this with foods. Okay. So object.keys is an object method, right? Because object is an object. That returns the keys in an object as an array, as we just saw. So if we wanted to, instead of do as I've done here, we could do this. So let's call this, what should we call these? For item heading thing, because they're going to be a heading for a column. And then let's console.log item headings.join because it's an array with comma space. That's going to get us this, but where we're actually pulling from the object keys. Let me space this out a little bit. Cool. This was by no means required. It's great if you went ahead and tried to do this, but I was totally expecting everybody to just write out item, color, price. So let's go like this. This didn't work? Oh. You have a question? Oh. because I put item here, but if we look at our data, our JSON file, it's named. So that's why. That's a good observation. Okay, so we've got the first two lines of our pretty table. How do the native JavaScript object? So within JavaScript, like behind the scenes, we have this object. Just like we talked about before, we have a numbers object and a Boolean object. This is the class from which all objects inherit. So this is the native JavaScript class representing an object. All object properties and methods are built into that object class, excuse me. And any object we create is an instance of this object. Which we'll talk about when we talk about object-oriented programming.
How would we know to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for the people who asked how to do this, I mentioned this. Look up object.keys. Otherwise, just by knowing, we mentioned it. Yeah. So you can look up the object. You can look this up on Mozilla Developer Network and find out what all the keys, the methods are, just like in math, and then learn how to use them. There's some that you'll see pretty frequently, like object.keys. This is going to take an object and return an array of keys. So we'll use it fairly frequently. Yeah. Again, it would have been totally fine. We just console.log, item color place as a string. Okay. So we've got our first two lines. How do we get these last three? Yeah, put on.
Oh, I mean,
Okay. You guys can split answering the question for me.
Start with a for loop.
Okay.
Um,
4.
Then, where it says, yes, perfect. You data dot keys dot.
Yep.
And then inside, I do a console.log.
So at this point it would be data keys. And I after that.
Like that? Good. That'll do it. So we're going to do that for what is it, name, color, and price.
Yeah, I see.
You cheated in what?
I did it, I hard coded the keys. I tried to use commas in this instance instead of plus sign, and it didn't work. Or it created extra commas.
Interesting. Let's check to make sure. Okay. Very good. Perfect. Great job, everybody. Can you go back? Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, what were you saying, Lisa? What did you try and do here?
Oh, I tried to use commas instead of plus sign.
Oh, yeah.
And weird things happened. It could have been the I, but commas.
Yeah, I don't know. This way, we're creating one string by using the plus sign. We're creating one string that we're printing. That way, you're printing out multiple strings. So yeah, that's probably why you saw, or not what you were expecting. Yeah. Do you have a question, Michael? Cool.
Why isn't there function
Object.value or something like that. There might actually be. I don't know. Did you look and not find them? Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure the answer to that question. Why does an object.keys method, but not an object.values method? Oh, Douglas, coffee. Say, hey man, this thing is broken. Cool. So do we all feel good about this overall? JSON is just a data format. Once we pull it into our JavaScript file, it's a JavaScript object. Super handy, right? The last thing we have to talk about today is called object-oriented programming. But we've already kind of touched on it, haven't we? Object-oriented programming is a paradigm in programming, so a way of thinking, in which we're going to try and model our understanding of the real world in code. We do that with objects. So we're going to build an object that is going to model how we think about people, specifically related to whatever application we're building. Just like the person that we built before. We'll do the same thing with cars. It's like cars. And that's the basics of object-oriented programming. There's some key terms that we need to talk about, and that's these. So when we're creating an object that is going to model our understanding of something, we'll keep going with cars. That initial object that we create is called a class. It's the generic car. So without a model, without a make, without a color. That's the class car in object-oriented. When we create a specific car, so Jolene's Audi, we have an instance of our car class. It's a specific thing. It's an instance of a class. That's how you think. Classes have properties and methods, just like objects. And in JavaScript, the first class or the first instance that we create is called the prototype. This is how object-oriented programming is different in JavaScript than in other languages. I talked about it a little bit in the very first class when I first introduced JavaScript. JavaScript has a model of object-oriented programming called prototypal inheritance. And it's easiest to understand by comparing it to how other languages do it. In another language, we define a class, and then we create instances of that class. So we'll sit here and we'll model. Typically, lots of whiteboards are involved. But we'll figure out everything that needs to go into our class, all the properties, all the methods, etc. And then we, as a developer on a team or another developer on our team, we'll sit down and build out that class in code. And then we can start creating instances of that class. But it's a whole separate process. In JavaScript, building our class is the same thing. This first class that we're going to build is the first instance of that class, or a prototype of the class. So our developer has sat down and done all the work of building out this class. And if we were building our application in Java, we still don't have any instances of that class that we can work with. In JavaScript, that class that our developer has built out is a prototype. So we can start using it right then. And that's what the prototype is. Cool. So here we have an object for a car. It's common convention in object-oriented programming that when we're building out a class, we capitalize the first letter. So capital C car, as opposed to lowercase c car. And here, just like before, we've got some properties and methods. But here I only have one car, right? Is this a class? Can I create instances of this car, I should say? Yeah? Kind of. So I've got a car, it's assigned to a variable. Down here, I can var my car is equal to car. But then in memory, so behind the scenes, these two variables down here are pointing to this same car. So if I change my car to be a Corolla, then this one will also become a Corolla. And that's not super useful. So, and this is kind of confusing, the way we implement object-oriented programming in JavaScript is with functions. I'm not kidding, that's not a joke. For the reasons that I just showed. Did I? Of course I did. Oh wait, not, it's down here though. We haven't even gotten to that part yet. Slow down. We'll change it. I'm going to start doing it in a cooler class. Cool. So this is how we create a class in JavaScript. It's with a function. We're going to uppercase the C because this is a class, var car, the function car. And then when we do this, we're going to create a scope, right? Because functions have scope, as we talked about at the end of last class. JavaScript has a handy way of referencing the current scope, which is called this. So we can assign variables or properties or function methods to the current scope through this. And then when we create a new one, any changes will be referenced to the current instance on our file. Oh no. So the part 1 section is won't work. It won't do anything. So this is an object that represents a car, right? A JavaScript object that represents a car. But as I said before, if I do var my car is equal to car, I don't have a new car. I have the same car.
You need to set up your object or you call them something.
No. So that object is not a class. It's just an object. This function is a class because I can create instances of it. And I'll show you that right now. So how do I spell Corolla? Yeah. Okay. Oh. I don't want to just lose. So there we go. So I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to assign it a new instance of my car using the new keyword. This is going to create a new car, a new reference of that function, or an instance of my class. If I don't use new, then I'll do what I was doing with the object before. Yeah, I'll just be doing assignment. So my Corolla will reference this function.
So the word new is actually identified. You're using the object above.
I'm not, the object that's way above, I'm using this function right here. This function is my class.
So that way it's not what
Yeah.
equals model for this one and
Yeah.
so if you don't use new, then
So if I don't use new, my Corolla will be equal to this function. If I do use new, then it will be equal to an instance of this function. So yeah, that's a great question because it's a very subtle difference. Alyssa.
what is the word new? In the sense of this is a method, and then model is
Right.
So what is new?
New is just a JavaScript keyword. It's the one that we use to
Like bar?
create, yeah, just like bar. And it's the one that we use to create an instance of a class. So here, if we think back, this is my prototype of a car. And here I have a specific car. So let me console log this.
So this dot model equals model and all of that, they match, like model, and configurator, but this, could the thing on the right be really?
Yeah. Because these are just parameters.
Oh,
Yeah.
but those are matching.
Yeah, well, because my references later, I want to be able to do my car dot model and get the model back.
So can we have, I guess that there's a place, where's the, like, this dot model equal an actual string that is this?
Car is not a constructor. Why is car not? Tell me your question again, sorry.
I think I was saying like this dot model equals model, but that model can be anything.
So, oh no. And here I'm passing it down, here I'm passing in a string, and year is a number. Yeah. Yeah. And I could do checks up here to make sure. What's up?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising. Car, new car. I forgot a bunch of stuff. Let me try this. Yours works? You want it?
Oh, I have to get here.
What did I have to? Ah. Nailed it. Thank you.
Because you're not supposed to set your
Yeah. So this was just this object that here that I forgot to uncomment was just for illustrative to show why we have to use it. But we're not going to use it. Yeah. I mean, I've got a bunch of other stuff in console over here. We can't create a class with an object. We cannot. Yeah, we have to use a function. Yeah. So our functions are objects. So if you go up high enough, this is an object. But don't worry. For now, if you want to create a class, you have to use a function. Yes. Sure. Yeah. So I'll show you guys now. This was just to show you guys that it works. Right? I get my car back and it has all these properties that I added to it. Let's create another car. So let's call it var. Let's do one of Chris's searches. This, let's call it Hertz. How about that? Equals new car. What is a good make and model and year for a Hertz? Oh, like that. PT Cruiser.
That's Chrysler.
We only drive the latest Hertzes. And what color is it?
Wood grain.
It was wood grain. That's right. Wood grain. So let's let me bring this down here. Console.log my Corolla dot color, and we'll console.log Hertz dot color. Didn't I? Sweet, it worked. Woo! Here, this is why we have to use functions. Because functions have scope and we can reference that scope. So we can create independent instances of our class. If we were to use regular objects, our initial building of the class, and then every instance of it would reference the same object. So when we created Chris's hers, we would be overwriting any other class that was inheriting from that object. We use a function that has its own individual scope. Every time we do this new car, it's like we're creating a new function that has its own new scope that we're assigning all of these properties in. Does that make it more clear? Yeah. Oh, yeah, new functions. Yeah. So we can do var myArray equals new array. We can also do var myFunction equals new function. My var my no, there we go, equals new number. We can do that, but that's a little bit tedious.
So another key element there that you want to pass in.
Yeah, that's totally up to us in our class. So what would happen if we didn't pass in a color is color would be equal to undefined, which we can test that out if you want. If I don't pass this in and then print out my color.color, there we go, undefined. Yeah. So it'll be everything that we define in there, but with whatever value. Yeah. So we have to, and that's because we have to create these as methods or properties in our object through assignment. So we have to assign it to something. The default is that it gets assigned to undefined. Cool. Okay, any questions? Tons, okay. Office hours?
Yeah.
Fill out, because we're at time. So fill out your exit tickets, and then you're free to go. I will be up here if you have any questions. Yeah.
I still don't get you. I didn't understand why, like, this is just not using you, still an object that has.
Yes. This will kind of work.
Yeah, so that's the real call-out thing. All this code in between this. Special about
Not even.
You wouldn't, it would be
They like to be as much. Oh, it's just a thing.
So this way.
Stuff.
It's not really, we have to think of our code. It's kind of like what's on. Well, so it's what we sign. So here we've got car. But
I have to use the word.
otherwise, so
What if I function where I do bar object, and then I object and then call that function.
Thanks, sir.
So it's kind of, yeah, it's not. Because here you're so this is, and yeah, that's each one. But, so you don't have yeah. Yeah, they're mine.
So I'm
Yeah, sounds good. Bye, have a good one. Do you have a question? Yeah, go for it. I'll close up while you're.
So the model make here are properties. Then what are the keys?
What are the keys?
Yeah.
So
Like
this whole thing is a property.
models.
This is a parameter.
No, if you go back to the object. So model make here color are the properties.
Yes.
Then what are the keys?
This whole row is a property. This is a key.
Oh, okay. So
This
the
is a
whole
value.
is-
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
was thinking the model is something. The model is key. Model make those things